Hey everybody, Keep7 here, back with another Magic the Gathering Arena video, and today we are going over more Kaldheim spoilers, and just wishing everybody a Happy New Year. Today is December 31st, so obviously tonight at midnight, everybody will be going into 2021, which hopefully will be a better year for everybody than 2020 was. But yeah, let's get right into it. So only one card for today. Probably I found one card in in all the resources that I used to find spoilers. Only found one as of about 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and I don't think I'm going to be doing much later because obviously there's New Year's celebrations and stuff, and games to play with friends and all that. So probably not going to be doing much research later in the day to accumulate any more cards if they do get spoiled. But just figured I'd get this one out there for now, and it is a pretty interesting card. So the card is Battle Mammoth. 5 mana, 3 and 2 green, elephant creature with trample. Whenever a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. And it has a Foretell ability, which is 4 mana, 2 and 2 green. During your turn, you may pay 2 mana and exile this card from your hand face down, and then cast it on a later turn for its Foretell cost, and it's a 6/5. So it's a very interesting card. Reminiscent, obviously its stats and its mana cost make you think of Elder Gargaroth. It has a hand up on Gargaroth in that it enables, if you cast Elder Gargaroth, nothing happens. You just put a 6/6 on the battlefield, and nothing can possibly happen until your opponent's turn, and they try to either attack into it, and you get some value from Gargaroth, or it goes back to your turn and you can attack with Gargaroth, and then you can draw a card, and then you can gain 3 life, and then you can create a 3/3 beast. So it's a card that does nothing and is removed, or it's a card that sits on the battlefield until you can use it. It doesn't really generate any value, upon entering the battlefield once it has resolved. This kind of does, because once it has resolved, if your opponent has an answer to it, you still get the card draw, which is good. But this card, that doesn't make this card better than Elder Gargaroth. Elder Gargaroth is still, I think, a hand and foot above this card. Elder Gargaroth has reach. Elder Gargaroth has vigilance. Elder Gargaroth has the extra point of toughness. It's a 6/6, not a 6/5. But this card does kind of recuperate a little bit of its value because of that Foretell ability, where you can pay 2 mana and then exile it from your hand and then cast it at a later turn for its Foretell cost. So you kind of get protection from hand hate. You can get this out of your hand. You can also, you're technically paying 6 mana for it, because you're paying 2 mana on one turn and then 4 mana on another turn. Don't mistake this for turning this card into a 4 mana card. That's not at all what happens. But that 2 mana can be kind of mitigated to make this feel better than 6 mana. If you ever have empty mana, obviously it's a good mana sink. You can just put this in and then only pay 4 later, which is fine. You're only saving 1 mana because it is only 5 total converted mana cost. So you're only saving 1 mana. But, if you have empty mana, you can spend it on this and then have a cheaper creature for later. 2 mana is also, very, if you have a resolved Great Henge, you can just, if you have nothing to do with the 2 mana to tap a Great Henge, you can just pay that. I don't know. Yeah, so Foretell is during your turn, so it can't be instant speed. So you can't have your, your Great Henge up on your opponent's turn and then tap it, get this exiled, and then play it for 4 on the next turn. That would make this infinitely better. So it's all during your turn. So this is sorcery. We are talking sorcery speed. Everything being done on your turn, which is, not necessarily sorcery speed, but it is done during your turn, which is obviously not as good as it being on your opponent's turn. So yeah, this with the Great Henge is obviously great. You can pay the 2 mana with the Great Henge. You can cast this into a Great Henge. You can cast this into a Great Henge or with the Great Henge on the battlefield, and that's obviously great. But does this replace Elder Gargaroth in any decks? Elder Gargaroth is pretty much only seeing sideboard play, really. He's a sideboard piece for in mono green food in the Gruul matchup. But even then, the whatchamacallit, Feasting Troll King is just kind of better. I don't know if this replaces it. This is probably better in a control matchup. In various control matchups, especially if control is splashing black for removal and stuff like that. Um, in blue-white control against blue-white control, if they're using things to exile and to kind of if they're using exile effects and like banishing lights and glass caskets, if they're using that kind of stuff to remove your threats, this is better because the card draw is what's going to help you win the game. The Great Henge and any card draw that you have is how you beat control with like a mono green aggro list. Just getting more creatures into your hand, more things that you can cast. I mean, the Great Henge, if you're able to resolve a Great Henge against control, you're miles ahead. So this is kind of pseudo Great Henge in that every time something gets targeted, you can draw a card, which means really your opponent has to decide: do they want to get rid of this, or do they want to get is there something else that they want to get rid of? And if they decide they want to get rid of something else, you get to draw a card, and then. I mean, even if this gets targeted, you draw a card. So there is some value there. So I think it's a good sideboard piece, especially if you're in a control matchup. It's tough because how much of your sideboard do you want to dedicate to creatures? If you have a sideboard spot for 2 Gargaroth and then you have a sideboard spot for 2 of these, that's you're taking care of a Gruul matchup and a control matchup. But are there better things to be using your sideboard for? Maybe. I think so. You can't use your entire sideboard these days for just cards for specific matchups. You have to really. I think a lot of what really great players are doing these days is sideboarding in alternate plans for not even just matchups, but just for their own deck. Just something to kind of throw your opponent off. I mean, I guess you could do either or. I mean, either is successful, but. It's just the sideboard is a very, very important resource, and to use a lot of it for creatures for specific matchups doesn't seem very good. But I guess 4 spots in a 15 card, if you have 15 spots and 4 of them are taken up by big creatures that are very good against specific decks, that's not the worst thing in the world. And yeah, that about does it. It's a mythic, so do you want to be spending your mythic wildcards on this? Gargaroth was kind of worth it. I think you really only need 2. And for this, you might like off the rip, maybe, as soon as Kaldheim comes out, maybe you just spend 2 on this. But if you're a heavy mono green player, I'd say absolutely just spend 2 mythic wildcards on this. But if you're not really playing too much mono green, maybe just pass, as you get more wildcards that you're not going to be really using, or if you don't really have anything that you're building right now, like at the moment, you can spend 2 on this. But cool art, cool name for a creature, Battle Mammoth. But I don't know, it's good, but needs to be better to replace Gargaroth in a lot of lists. So yeah, the foretell ability, I don't know if more creatures are going to have that, but it's very interesting. Using empty mana is always an interesting concept, and anytime you leave mana on the table, you're falling behind. So being able to have kind of a sink of where you can put mana is kind of nice. And then obviously having a discounted creature on the following turn could open up mana for an important play that turn as well, or on future turns. So definitely interesting to see Foretell being an ability in Kaldheim. Don't know if it's going to be on more creatures. Maybe it's just on this guy. Hopefully it's on more creatures. I'd like to see kind of how they kind of can play with Foretell. Maybe on this card, I think it's okay. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's bad. I think it's just it's just a thing. On other cards, maybe there is maybe Foretell is like a bit better. And Foretell, I'm talking about Foretell, obviously not having. I've never seen this mechanic before. Maybe it's been in previous sets and I've just never played with it. I don't know if it's as good as it looks or it's as bad as it might look. I think it's just cool. I think it's cool, not necessarily overpowered, not necessarily underpowered. It's just a new mechanic. I don't think it's like Adventures. Adventures, as a mechanic was, I think, is incredibly powerful. And if this as an ability or as a mechanic, I don't think stacks up to like what Adventures does or Companions, what Companions do. But I think it's cool. I think it seems kind of balanced. Maybe it's better than I think it is, but for now I think it's just cool. And could be interesting. There might be cards that are stronger or weaker, but very cool. So yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. I really hope everybody's 2021, everyone everywhere has a 2021 better than 2020 has gone, because 2020 has been kind of a fucking shithole. But yeah, hopefully things turn around for everybody. Hopefully, make some New Year's resolutions, and I hope everybody, reaches your goals for 2021. So thanks everybody for watching, and we'll catch you later. Happy New Year.